The HOA president shrieked like a tea kettle as a dozen tiny green mouths snapped shut in unison, right there on my porch for the whole block to see. She'd climbed up with all the confidence of a sheriff come to confiscate a stash of illegal fireworks, reached for the nearest clay pot, and my Venus flytraps clapped back by biting at the air around her perfect manicure. She flung the pot, missed completely, and tumbled backward into my rosemary bush. Honest to God, it looked like a scene from a suburban nature documentary, if David Attenborough did HOA exposés. Behind me, I heard a neighbor stage whisper, "Nature says hi," like it was the best punchline of the week, and all I could do was stand there and try not to laugh. So yeah, I'm Evan Cordell, just a regular guy with a split-level house in Birch Ridge, a place where the cul-de-sacs get curated like museum exhibits. The Christmas lights have to match a Pantone code, and every lawn is exactly 2¼ inches high. No more, no less. Every mailbox points northeast, every driveway gets power washed the first Saturday of the month, and me, well, I keep to myself. Coffee at 6, jog at 7, spreadsheets all day, Sudoku at 9. That's my big vice, if you can call it that. The only thing even remotely controversial about my house was the stack of empty terracotta pots on the porch, just sitting there like some weird minimalist art installation, lined up from 4 inches to 12 inches, arranged in this little pyramid that I found strangely satisfying, you know? The way the afternoon sun would cast shadows through those rims, the earthy texture, the clean lines. It was the one thing I let myself fuss over. But then came Mara Yates, HOA president for 6 years running, windbreaker collector, human citation machine. The kind of woman who drives a silver sedan with a custom plate that says Arwelzy, keeps a Ring camera pointed at 3 different properties, and rides around with a binder full of bylaws in her passenger seat. She believed aesthetics were a religion, and my pots, well, they were heresy. This is a woman who once fined a family for leaving their garage door open 15 minutes past the approved window, who measured a kid's sidewalk chalk art and called it too close to the street. Mara didn't just enforce the rules. She was the rules. First it was notes, aggressive capital letters printed on HOA letterhead, tucked into plastic sleeves like evidence. Remove empty plant receptacles. They project despair. Then came the fines, $25 for the first week, $50 for the next, $100 by week 3. I caught her out there during her evening patrol, measuring the diameter of my top pot and later calling it aggressively circular in an all-neighborhood email, subject line. Aesthetic concerns on Maple Drive. Yes, she CC'd everyone. Another morning, I saw her crouched in my hedges with a laser pointer, claiming she was assessing porch morale. When I asked what that even meant, she told me my pots created a hostile visual environment, then told my next-door neighbor that my house was a terracotta cry for help and suggested I seek professional decor therapy. She left a business card for an interior designer under my windshield wiper, started a Facebook thread called "When Neighbors Stop Caring," featuring a zoomed-in shot of my porch from across the street. I tried ignoring her. Work to do, deadlines to meet, and honestly, her obsession with my pots seemed way more about her than it was about me. But Mara was relentless. She showed up during my morning jog to photograph the pots from different angles, brought the HOA vice president over for a joint inspection, and they stood there with clipboards like city building inspectors. She cited me for visual clutter, aesthetic negligence, and my personal favorite, willful disregard for community standards. Then she slipped a 72-hour removal notice under my door, citing Rule 14b, no dormant decor. And that was the last straw. I read that rule 3 times, dug up the original bylaws filed with the county, and realized she was making this up as she went along. The rule talked about holiday decorations left up past the season. Nothing about empty pots. So I got creative. Drove 40 minutes out to this little carnivorous plant nursery run by a woman who greeted me with dirt under her fingernails and a big OL smile. She taught me the words peristome and rhizome, showed me how the traps worked, what to feed him, how to keep him happy, and I drove home with a trunk full of Diane Miscipula like some Bond villain who shops at Home Depot. 12 plants, healthy as can be, potted them up in organic sphagnum moss, stuck a placard in each that said active decor in neat block letters, and set them out in the same pyramid as the empty pots. Legal, living, beautiful. Mara did not take the twist well. I watched from my window as she stopped her sedan right in the street, got out, stared, confusion, anger, disbelief, then just rage flickering across her face. She called an emergency board meeting right there on my sidewalk at 7:30 a.m. She brought 3 board members who looked like they'd rather be at the dentist. "These are predatory plants," she announced to the gathering crowd, as if I'd built a piranha tank on my porch. She said carnivorous 6 times in 2 minutes, claimed they posed a safety risk to kids and pets. Someone asked how. She said the traps might snap shut on fingers. I pointed out the traps were barely 2 inches wide. She ignored me, stormed right onto my property at 8:15 with camera and pruning shears, muttering about abating hostile flora. I was finishing my coffee. By the time I got outside, she'd already clipped a trap and was holding it up to her phone like CSI. That's when Officer Delaney rolled up, summoned by 3 neighbors live streaming the whole mess. One stream was actually titled, "HOA President vs. Murder Plants." 47 viewers, not bad for a Wednesday. "Ma'am," Delaney asked, looking more amused than anything, "why are you on his porch with garden shears?" Mara puffed up. "Community safety. His plants have teeth." Delaney looked at the plants, looked at me, and asked if I wanted to press trespassing charges. I was still thinking it over when Mara pulled out an unlabeled spray bottle from her windbreaker and spritzed my plants with what she called a neutralizer. The wind carried the mist. Neighbors started coughing. One mom covered her kid's face, and Delaney's mood changed real quick. "Ma'am, what's in that bottle?" Mara stalled, called it plant treatment, but wouldn't say more. Delaney called for backup, told her to put the bottle down, and things went from wacky to downright official. The neutralizer was a hardware store pesticide, not legal for residential use, commercial grade, concentrated. The city environmental inspector showed up, sampled the residue, took photos, and 2 hours later the county plant conservation officer rolled in, all because Mara had blasted my porch with unapproved chemicals. Turns out, my flytraps were nursery-grown, native to the Carolinas, and perfectly legal. But the HOA president had just sprayed the block with something that could have wiped out pollinators for miles. The inspector wanted the HOA's enforcement logs and chemical safety policies. Mara balked, tried to claim board privilege, then got caught on a body cam trying to delete a folder called Yard Crimes from her tablet. The crowd gasped. 24 hours later, the magistrate hit the HOA with a temporary restraining order. No one from the board was allowed to set foot on my property until a hearing. Mara got cited personally for unlicensed pesticide use, up to $5,000 in fines. The HOA board started holding closed-door meetings, whispering about liability. My neighbors started showing up with lawn chairs and popcorn anytime Mara drove by. Team Flytrap t-shirts appeared. The live streams went viral across 3 neighborhood groups. Mara stopped her evening patrols. The hearing was like a suburban Super Bowl, standing room only, neighbors skipping work to see the showdown. Mara showed up in a navy suit, toting a binder, a laptop, and a poster board. She presented a slideshow, Predators on Porch, featuring stock images of gators, snapping turtles, and, I kid you not, a piranha. She argued my plants were an attractive nuisance, said they might inspire dangerous gardening trends, showed a chart comparing trap closure speed to human reaction time. The judge asked if any kids had been harmed. Mara said no, yet, but it was only a matter of time. The city attorney rolled her eyes and played the live stream video of Mara slicing my plant, declaring, "I am the law of landscaping." The room lost it. The inspector testified. Mara's spray was 3 times too strong, harmful to bees, pets, and likely the storm drains. Neighbors who'd been sprayed described burning eyes and coughing. One woman brought a doctor's letter. But here's the twist that dropped jaws. The city attorney pulled up the actual HOA bylaws on the courtroom monitor. Turns out, Rule 14b had been amended 8 months prior to allow living displays demonstrating horticultural interest. The amendment had been properly voted on and signed by Mara herself. She'd never updated her binder, never filed it with the city, just kept enforcing the old rule out of habit or pride, maybe. The judge asked if she was aware of the amendment. Mara stammered, turned beet red, and claimed she didn't think it applied to carnivorous plants. The judge looked at my active decor placard, smiled just a little, and laid down his verdict. $1,500 fine for Mara personally, $5,000 for the HOA, and an independent ombudsman to oversee complaints from now on. Oh, and Mara, 120 hours of community service tending the town pollinator garden every Saturday for 3 months. Because irony should be educational, the judge said. Mara just stood there, red as a ripe tomato, mouth opening and closing like one of my fly traps. The room erupted in whispers. Outside, the neighborhood felt lighter. People grinned when they passed my porch, gave me thumbs up. One lady even brought over homemade cookies. Funny, right? In a place obsessed with order and rules, it was a bunch of little green plants that brought the whole neighborhood together. Now, whenever someone asks about the fly traps, I just tell them. Sometimes the best way to stand up to bullies is to outgrow them, one root at a time. So what do you think? Was the judge right to hand out that poetic justice? Or did it go too far? Have you ever seen a neighborhood feud get this out of hand? Drop your wildest HOA or neighbor story in the comments. And hey, if you think justice should come with a side of irony and a few Venus flytraps, give this story a share. Let's hear where you stand on what's fair and what's just plain over the line.